So imagine you want to start a business and not a flashy tech startup in some major city, right?
Right, something a bit more grounded.
Exactly. A farm in a rural community. So you take the leap, you borrow basically your entire life savings,
Yeah.
you purchase the livestock, you build the shelters, and then week 2, a sudden heat wave hits.
Oh, man, yeah.
And you don't know the signs of heat stress in your animals yet, so half your flock dies?
Which is devastating on its own.
Right. And then the buyer you had lined up, they just suddenly stop answering your calls.
Terrible.
So within, 14 days? You are entirely bankrupt, no safety net, and this massive loan that you can literally never repay.
Yeah, and that devastating scenario, I mean, that is the reality for millions of aspiring entrepreneurs in traditional sectors.
It's terrifying.
It really is, because the structural barriers to starting a business in those rural environments are just immense. People always assume the main hurdle is, just a lack of ambition.
Or like they just don't have the initial capital.
Exactly. But the documentation we are looking at today, it identifies a much more systemic failure.
Which brings us to the mission for our deep dive today. So for you listening, our fellow learner trying to cut through all the noise and find the actual mechanics of how big ideas work, we are unpacking a massive stack of sources today.
A really massive stack.
Seriously, it's titled The Vision to Venture Master Blueprint, and it spans from 2026 all the way to 2040.
It is an incredibly ambitious roadmap.
Yeah, aimed at completely revolutionizing entrepreneurship in India,
Yeah.
and they are using agriculture as their primary proving ground.
Which makes sense, given the scale.
Totally. Their ultimate goal is to take this highly fragmented, just deeply frustrating support system and forge it into one unified, self-reinforcing ecosystem.
And the blueprint actually opens by diagnosing exactly why that 14-day bankruptcy scenario you just described happens so often.
The fear factor, right?
Exactly. Aspiring entrepreneurs are paralyzed by a completely rational fear of failure. I mean, they lack practical hands-on guidance.
Because, a government program or an NGO might step in for a minute?
But they might give them, like, a 3-day training seminar.
Yeah.
But they leave that seminar with a really poor understanding of market dynamics.
Weak financial management skills.
Yep. And virtually zero mentorship the exact moment that initial training phase ends.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the transition the blueprint makes from identifying that isolation to actually proposing a real mechanical solution, it's fascinating.
It's a huge shift in thinking.
Yeah, because the traditional journey for a small-time entrepreneur, it's basically like trying to build a house by hiring an architect, a bank, and a construction crew who violently refuse to speak to each other.
That is the perfect analogy.
Right. You have universities that only care about the theoretical stuff.
They don't do execution.
No. And then you have consultants who hand over a PDF report and just disappear into the night.
While the banks are over there only looking at your credit score.
And the equipment suppliers just want to make a sale and run. Nobody is actually talking to each other.
Right. And to push your construction analogy a step further, what's fascinating here is that the blueprint's authors realized trying to force those separate entities to cooperate, it's impossible.
It just won't happen.
No. So the only way to actually fix the broken house is to essentially buy the bank, hire the architect in-house, and permanently employ the construction crew yourself.
Wow.
They call this the Integrated Emon Ecosystem model. And the core philosophy is the total elimination of institutional fragmentation.
So it's all under one roof.
Exactly. A single overarching entity holds the entrepreneur's hand from the very first moment they dream up a business, through the incredibly risky setup phase, all the way to guaranteeing they can actually sell their product at the end.
Meaning you never leave the ecosystem.
You never leave.
Just thinking about the psychological shift that creates is wild. I mean, for you listening, imagine the sheer relief of stepping into a new venture knowing every single vulnerability is being monitored by a partner.
A partner whose own profit depends on you not going bankrupt.
Exactly. So if the ecosystem is this massive safety net, how do they actually, string it together on the ground?
Well, the blueprint details 3 foundational pillars.
Okay.
First, there is the mothership, basically. Vision to venture. That is the educational hub. It's the consultants, the business planners, the AI tools.
The brains of the operation.
Right. Then you have the execution arm.
Yeah.
Emon Hatcheries. They build the physical infrastructure.
And then the third pillar.
Finally, you have DesiMeatz. And that is the consumer-facing brand and the digital marketplace.
Got it. So those 3 pillars interlock to cover literally the entire supply chain.
Completely. Vision to venture provides the theory, and helps with the loan paperwork.
Yeah, right.
Then Emon Hatcheries delivers the actual physical reality. The chicks, the farm blueprints, the feed, the medicines.
And then DesiMeatz is like the economic engine at the end of the tunnel.
Exactly. Processing and selling the final output to the public.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, but it also raises a massive red flag for me.
I think I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, because we are talking about taking a vulnerable, first-time entrepreneur and plugging them entirely into one single corporate machine.
It is a lot of control.
It is. They learn from vision to venture. They are literally required to buy their supplies from Emon Hatcheries, and their only buyer is DesiMeatz.
Right.
That borders on a corporate fiefdom, doesn't it? Like, what happens if DesiMeatz suddenly decides to cut their buying price by 20%?
This farmer is trapped.
Completely trapped. They have no independent market access outside of this ecosystem.
This raises an important question, and it is a severe structural risk. It essentially demands that the entrepreneur trade total independence for baseline security.
Right. A huge trade-off.
But the blueprint attempts to counter this vulnerability by making the pricing structures incredibly transparent and establishing guaranteed minimum buyback rates.
Okay, so they put a floor on how low the price can go.
Exactly. But to really understand why someone would accept that trade-off in the first place, you have to look at what they call the entrepreneur success journey.
The 7-stage pathway, right.
Yes. It's a very strict 7-stage pathway designed to mitigate the absolute terror of the open market.
So walk us through what day one looks like for a farmer entering this pathway.
Sure. So stage 1 is categorized simply as the dream. The individual has the desire, but no technical skill whatsoever.
They just know they want to start something.
Right. Then stage 2 pulls them into vision to venture for rigorous business guidance. This is where all the financial planning is actually done for them.
Which takes a massive weight off their shoulders.
Absolutely. Then we move to stage 3, which is the physical business setup. This is where Emon Hatcheries steps in with their standard operating procedures and handles the actual farm construction.
Okay, so they're physically building the site.
Yes. And then stage 4 is production. The entrepreneur is now officially running the business, but they are under continuous, active monitoring from the ecosystem specialists.
Which solves the issue of that 3-day seminar disappearing act we talked about earlier.
Precisely. They are literally watching over your shoulder as you operate.
That's amazing. And then they have to sell the product.
Which brings us to stage 5, market access. This is where DesiMeatz neutralizes the single biggest hurdle in agriculture, which is finding a reliable buyer.
Because usually a farmer has to load everything onto a truck, drive to a local market,
and haggle with middlemen who know exactly how desperate the farmer is to sell before the product spoils.
Right. It's a terrible negotiating position.
It is. But here, DesiMeatz handles the procurement, the branding, the packaging, and the retail logistics.
They just buy it straight out?
Yep. Then stage 6 focuses on scale, helping those successful farmers double or even triple their capacity.
But stage 7, this is the one that really stood out to me.
Stage 7 is arguably the most vital mechanism in the entire document. They call it give back.
Right. This is where they mandate that successful entrepreneurs eventually transition into certified mentors or local investors or franchise partners.
Exactly. They start training the incoming class of stage 1 dreamers.
It is a brilliant psychological loop, but honestly, it's also just a massive operational hack.
How do you mean?
Well, they are turning their biggest liability, which is inexperienced beginners, into their most valuable asset, which is experienced human capital.
Oh, absolutely.
It completely solves the mentorship bottleneck because you can't just hire a million mentors, right? You have to create them.
Yeah, it is the only way a system this hands-on can actually sustain itself. Now, applying this incredibly dense 7-stage support structure to agriculture first is a very deliberate choice on their part.
Why agriculture specifically?
Because agriculture is the economic backbone for massive rural populations in India. Yet it suffers from abysmal technology adoption, highly erratic supply chains, and just catastrophic market inefficiencies.
Yeah, the sources outline a very specific hit list of agricultural targets. Like they are starting with poultry, but they break it down really technically.
You do. They mention broiler farming, layer farming, hatcheries.
Can we pause and clarify those terms for a second? Because reading the blueprint, it treats them as entirely different business models.
Because they are. They require entirely different operational cadences. Broiler farming, for example, is raising birds specifically for meat.
Okay.
It is a fast, high turnover cycle, usually around 40 days, which means it carries a very high risk of sudden disease, just wiping out the fast-growing flock.
Fast cash, but high risk. And layer farming.
Layer farming is raising birds for egg production. that is a much longer-term commitment. It requires different nutritional science, different housing, and it yields a slower but steadier cash flow.
And they don't even stop at chickens. They have entire modules dedicated to duck farming.
Yes, specifically breeds like Patati ducks and Peking ducks.
They outline protocols for goat farming. And they put a huge emphasis on modern, biosecure pig farming.
The term biosecure is critical there.
Yeah, tell me about that, because they aren't just putting pigs in a muddy pen out back.
Not at all. Biosecure farming means they are engineering literal biological fortresses. They mandate strict sanitization protocols, highly controlled access points, and specific ventilation systems to prevent the kind of viral outbreaks that routinely decimate traditional open-air farms.
It's basically treating a rural farm with the rigor of a pharmaceutical lab.
It really is.
And they are pushing Internet of Things IoT technology into these spaces. So we are talking about placing cheap, internet-connected temperature and humidity sensors inside a remote chicken coop.
Exactly. So if the temperature drops at, say, 2 in the morning.
An alert pings the mothership.
Right.
A mentor literally calls the farmer, the heater gets fixed, and a $5,000 investment is saved just like that.
The technology physically de-risks the financial loan.
It's so smart.
And the agriculture sector is serving as their ultimate stress test here. If an organization can successfully standardize a living, breathing, dying commodity in a region with unpredictable weather and weak infrastructure.
It can standardize anything.
Exactly. The blueprint explicitly states that by 2030 and 2040, they will overlay this exact 7-stage ecosystem onto future ventures.
Like what?
They list things like Office Go for rural mobility, renewable energy grids, financial services, and eventually a full entrepreneurship university.
Okay, but wait. This brings up a massive logistical wall for me.
Let's hear it.
It is one thing to offer guaranteed buybacks and IoT monitoring to a couple of dozen local poultry farmers in one single district.
Sure.
But if you are expanding into dairy, goat farming, and rural transportation networks across the entire country, how does the mothership not go completely bankrupt trying to micromanage all of that?
It's a huge operational challenge.
You can't just hire 1,000 consultants and hope they all give good advice, right? There has to be a mechanical system to control the quality.
And there is. The sheer scale of their ambition requires a fanatical dedication to standardization.
Right.
The sources detail a massive document called the Vision to Venture Operating Manual. This is where the theoretical ecosystem becomes a rigid, undeniable reality.
Yeah, the manual is wild. We are talking about a 300 to 400-page operational Bible broken down into 15 distinct volumes.
It is incredibly granular.
They have codified over 100 standard operating procedures, or SOPs.
They treat starting a rural pig farm the way an airline treats flying a Boeing 747.
Oh, I love that comparison.
I mean, a pilot doesn't rely on gut instinct or a good mood to fly a plane, right? They follow a strict pre-flight checklist because if they miss one step, the plane crashes.
Right.
The ecosystem applies that exact logic to entrepreneurship.
You literally have SOP 001 for how to conduct the first client consultation.
Yep.
SOP 002 dictates exactly how a farm visit must be executed. They have checklists for project report preparation, checklists for submitting loan documentation.
Even protocols for how the local office website must be updated.
It's insane because if a consultant goes to a farm and just, eyeballs the ventilation instead of following SOP 002, they might miss a draft that kills 500 birds the next night.
Exactly. The checklist eliminates the single point of human failure.
Okay, but what happens when something inevitably goes wrong that isn't on the checklist?
Well, that rigid standardization is locked in place by a continuous improvement mechanism.
How does that work?
Every single quarter, a dedicated team reviews those 15 volumes. They analyze failure rates on the farms, they process customer feedback, and they rewrite the SOPs to close any newly discovered loopholes.
So it's constantly evolving. And I noticed a huge emphasis on Volume 1, Chapter 3, the Code of Ethics.
Yes.
Which, it might sound like standard corporate jargon to some people, but the manual aggressively mandates that employees must never mislead an entrepreneur.
And never promise unrealistic profit margins.
Right. Why is that so heavily emphasized?
Because in a high-poverty, deeply networked rural area, trust is not a soft metric. It is the ultimate operational bottleneck.
Oh, because everybody talks.
Exactly. If a single consultant overpromises returns just to secure a consulting fee, and that farmer goes bankrupt.
The rumor spreads through the entire district in days.
The community's trust completely evaporates, and the regional expansion collapses.
Hmm.
So the ethical mandate is actually a strict survival mechanism for the ecosystem itself.
The manual is basically the operating system for the machine. It is the only way they can stamp out this franchise model from their base in Assam to regional offices and eventually to international borders without the whole thing caving in on itself.
Precisely.
So we have the ecosystem built, we have the 15-volume manual to standardize it, and we have the biosecure farms ready to go.
The infrastructure is set.
But how do you actually acquire the customers? I mean, how do you convince a million skeptical, risk-averse people to walk through the front door and trust you with their life savings?
This transition from physical operations to customer acquisition reveals arguably the most sophisticated strategy in the entire blueprint.
Because I thought we were reading a highly technical agricultural business plan, right?
Right.
And suddenly the blueprint pivots into this aggressive, masterclass level media empire. Their YouTube strategy is absolutely staggering.
It is incredibly modern for an agricultural company.
Seriously, if you are listening to this right now and you run a tech startup or a freelance design business, you should be taking notes on this content flywheel they have designed.
The blueprint states a clear objective. Vision to Venture will become India's #1 entrepreneurship YouTube channel by 2040.
#1 by 2040.
Targeting 10 million subscribers and 500 million annual views. And they detail the exact mechanical production schedule to achieve it.
They have mapped out the first 500 long-form videos.
Which is a massive undertaking.
120 videos strictly dissecting the mechanics of poultry, 80 on broader agriculture, 60 on livestock management.
They also planning high-production documentaries tracking the success of Stage 7 mentors.
Oh, that's smart. Social proof.
Exactly. And they are scripting tutorials on how farmers can use AI tools for basic accounting.
But the math of their distribution is what really blew my mind here.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's all about the repurposing multiplier.
Yes. They take a single 15-minute highly educational YouTube video, right?
Yeah. Yep.
They pass it to an editing team who chops it into 3 to 5 YouTube shorts. They recut it into 3 Facebook Reels and 3 Instagram Reels.
Then the script is handed to a writer who turns it into a Twitter thread and an SEO-optimized blog article.
The core data becomes an infographic and an email newsletter. Like they take one piece of long-form media and atomize it into 20 distinct pieces of content across every single platform.
So those 500 initial videos are systematically processed into over 10,000 individual pieces of targeted media.
10,000? That's insane volume.
But the volume isn't even the point. The architecture of the content is what matters. Every single video is engineered using a ruthless psychological formula.
The hook, right?
Right. Hook them in the first 10 seconds. Agitate the specific problem like, say, the heat waves killing the flock.
Then provide a highly practical, free solution.
Visually demonstrate that solution using real Emon Hatcheries equipment, and then finally hit them with a call to action.
The media empire is not just some vanity project. It is the top of the funnel for their monetization ecosystem.
Exactly. By giving away thousands of hours of highly specific, valuable education entirely for free, they are cultivating immense parasocial trust.
Because they've been helping you for free for years.
Right. So when a prospective farmer finally decides they want to start a biosecure pig farm, they don't go to a random bank or a local government office.
They go to the brand they have been watching on their phone every day.
Exactly. The media engine generates the leads.
The consulting wing plans the business.
The hatcheries wing builds the farm.
And the meat brand buys the product.
And then the farmer, once successful, becomes the star of the next YouTube documentary, generating a whole new wave of leads.
It is a perfectly sealed, self-generating loop. They are fundamentally an educational media company that just happens to build farms and process meat.
It represents the complete realization of their ecosystem flywheel. The continuous integration of education, finance, infrastructure, and guaranteed market access. It creates a momentum that becomes exponentially harder to stop with every new participant.
So what does this all mean for you, the learner, trying to extract the real insight from this massive blueprint?
It's all about risk.
Yeah. At its core, the Vision to Venture Master Plan is an attempt to surgically remove the risk from entrepreneurship.
They looked at the exact reasons why small businesses fail in traditional sectors.
Right. The isolation, lack of technical knowledge, sudden environmental shocks, predatory market pricing.
And they built a corporate fortress to defend against every single one of those vulnerabilities.
By locking education, physical infrastructure, a guaranteed buyer, and a relentless media machine into one unified system, they are literally trying to engineer an environment where failing actually requires more effort than succeeding.
They're attempting to institutionalize success through sheer operational force. And honestly, it leaves us with a highly disruptive concept to consider regarding our own environments.
Yeah, if an entirely integrated, deeply standardized ecosystem, one that holds a beginner's hand from the very first YouTube video to the final retail sale, can successfully modernize and scale something as chaotic and unpredictable as rural agriculture.
What else could it do?
Exactly. What other highly fragmented, deeply frustrating industries in your own life, your own community, or your own career could be entirely overthrown by a system that simply refuses to let its beginners fail?
It changes the entire paradigm of what it means to build a business.
Something for you to mull over. Until next time, keep digging into the mechanics and keep asking the right questions.